Ben.
Alright guys, welcome back to the askColm&JaneShow. We are really happy and delighted how our last episode went with Dawn. We've got really good feedback. I suppose one of the main things was that people have actually took action, and I think that's really important because we tend to listen to a lot of podcasts, listens to a lot of people, but then we continue doing the same things, and we've got quite a few messages in of people that's like, oh, only in the last couple of days I've actually said I'll try this, what you've talked about, and I think that was really valuable. Something simple as knowing that feelings is your feedback. The next time people kind of came to that hurdle where their feelings are telling them stories and they're not sure what it is, to use that was a huge step. So that was just something that I thought really stood out in the last one that we talked about, of the messages that come in for us. For me, one of the main things that Dawn talked about that has stood out in my brain was that we come to a low point. Everybody does in some part of their life. Dawn talked about having 70 cents in her bank account. She used that as fire in her belly. A lot of people could have just took that and sat with it and continued that journey. And knowing that nothing's forever. That was huge for me.
I suppose taking that leap to put herself into a situation where now she had no job, and then with no way kind of back, and then realising that she'd 72 cents, it was giving her the firepower to keep going, rolling onwards.
So I suppose one of the questions that we've had a lot of questions, a lot of them tie into the same idea of answers. So we're going to go through some of the questions that we were asked, but then we're also going to give a feedback on. A lot of them tie back to the same motivation, time, energy. They're all going into the same categories, but asked in a different way. One of them that really stood in my mind was around motivation. So me and you have came to a lot of hurdles with this where we're super pumped, super motivated, and then when we need it the most, it wasn't there. So one of the questions was that somebody asked me was, I feel like I'm motivated, but then something goes wrong or didn't go to plan, and I self-sabotage. So whether it's you're on a diet and they eat something that's not healthy for them, then they start feeling bad about doing it, and it's a negative effect. Is that something that you can tell us more about or talk more about?
I think people straight away zoom too much in on the word motivation, and they rely on it a lot, I suppose. I think we should probably run on systems rather than actual words of motivation, things like that. You got to bear in mind that motivation is when someone gets here, we can motivate them, but how did they get here? I suppose is the biggest thing. I suppose the why is more important than the motivation. So if you really zoom in on your why, if it's a fitness journey or whatever it is, if you zoom in on why you want to do it, and that's your motivation, and if you stay focused on why you want to achieve that, well, that should give you enough fire in your belly to get you going and getting in the right direction. Is that kind of making sense?
It is, and it's something that I've noticed through consultations and working with people, is that people, and even the messages we got, people are saying they want to learn more about mindset, and I'm saying, well, I want to learn more about motivation. So why do you want to learn, or what stages are you struggling with it? So is it at 8 o'clock in the evening whenever your kids go to bed and you're sitting down to comfort and food? Why are you actually doing that? I think that's a huge element of it. So whether it's motivation, whether, why is it at that particular time that it's happening and not at other times of the day? Motivation for us is a big one of, even identifying that, what's important to you, and the times, say for example, the times you train. That you love training in the evenings. That in the morning you don't give it as much. You're identifying that, and that's really important.
Yeah, it's definitely about identifying, but it's about being patient. So if you find yourself tired in the evening, well, then maybe try and make that little bit of room in the morning then, and try it out. And understand that if you haven't been doing this or you haven't done it before, it's going to take a little bit of time for it to program or for you to get there. So it's definitely about being patient on that one and kind of figuring out what direction that you're kind of going on it. Yeah. But you've got to build self-awareness around what kind of works for you best. So many people come in here and say, I cannot train in the evening. For me, I'm like, whoa, I struggle in the mornings.
Yeah.
So it's kind of what you're programmed. And for me, why I suppose I'm evening type programmed is that I suppose playing Gaelic football would have been evening training all the time.
Yeah.
So that was just what I programmed from a young age. So that kind of worked for me, whereas I always started work very early in the morning, and it was always that this didn't suit me to do it in the morning, so I built a program around the evening. But like that, if I had to make it happen in the morning, I will make it happen.
Yeah.
I remember back 2 years ago, on the open forest, I was going to play Gaelic football. The only chance I got to train was at 7 in the morning, and I used to train here at 7 o'clock. I did it for 4 or 5 weeks. It was tough, but I was starting to build that program into myself. Then I realised that just with work and everything else, that it wasn't actually sustainable for me to actually play Gaelic football. I realised that I had to kind of drop it out. But I had started off, I had 6 weeks into it, and I was starting to get used to it. Then I ended up, I had to work in the mornings, and things just wasn't working out that way for me. So then I just ended up going back to the evening. So if I have to do it, I will build a program and make it happen. But definitely.
Do you think motivation's something that people overestimate to get results? People kind of use it as a reason why they're not getting results because their motivation's there. Do you think getting a bit deeper into kind of why is the motivation and what the motivation is important for people?
Yeah, look at the why. I think the why is definitely if you zoom in on why, if you don't feel good, you don't feel good in your clothes, that should be your goal, not like motivation. You need to stay focused on the why. Like if I'm not feeling good, and you're generally not feeling good inside, and you don't want to go to training, well, just bring the first thing to the top of your mind is that I don't feel good, and that I need to do this. This is going to get me to where I need to get to. On that kind of one. Yeah,
but I suppose, as you say, keeping focused on it. And that's something that we hear a lot is about, when we're doing research, is focusing on the goal. So if you're motivated and you're constantly focused on where you want to go, it'll make a big difference to your motivation.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so I suppose just on that, one of the other things we talked about is just because your motivation slips slightly, it doesn't mean everything has to be thrown away. And we actually have talked about this before in regards to money.
Look at it. Like so many people say to me, right? Oh, if I don't train on a Monday, the whole week, I throw the whole week away. I just like at the start of the week, and I'm like, why? And they're like, I just don't see the point. And then I'll start next week, and then it's just rolling on. Or if it's in terms of food, if someone eats a biscuit, then they realise that I've now went over my calorie intake deficit. So now I'm like, then you go binging on it. So I'm like, if you just do relate that to money, like if you 10 grand and someone stole 3 of it, you wouldn't just throw the other 7 away, would you?
I love it.
You'd never just throw it away. So you just stay focused on that one. So it's the same with training on Monday. If you don't train on a Monday, someone stole 3 grand and you just don't throw the rest of the days away.
Yeah.
Or if you do, everybody can cheat on a fitness journey and eat a bit of cake or whatever it is. But throwing your hat at it then and is kind of where the problem comes, and beating yourself up that I ate that. If you can't uneat it. So if you eat it, it's it and that's it. It's about how you deal going forward with it, I suppose, is super important as well.
Yeah, definitely. And even when you say that, I'm thinking back and reflecting on my fitness journey, and like simple things that I would have done was if I had an unhealthy breakfast, usually the rest of my day was unhealthy. And something that I changed around was that if I do eat an unhealthy breakfast, I try and eat healthy for the rest of the day, rather than actually doing it the complete opposite. So that's something that kind of worked for me in regards to motivation and staying focused.
Yeah, definitely so.
Right, so next we want to go on to is talk about millenniums. It's a topic that we talk about, we have talked about it before, but I think I want you just to elaborate a wee bit deeper into it.
But it's an interesting topic. We get endless amount of questions about, I want to know more about mindset. So we're like, the people are super interested in mindset, and then myself and Jane kind of looked at it and we were like, what people wants to know more about mindset, and self-image and all that, and it's coming into that age bracket, the under 40s, between the 20s and 40 age bracket. So millennials, I suppose, so many people argue with this one, but millennials, people think, are born in the millennial era. They're not. Millennials are born approximately the early 80s. So anything from 80, 81. So that kind of leaves people in nowadays anything in around the 38 to 40 age bracket. So millennials is generally anyone who was born between the early 80s up until the mid-late 90s. So I suppose it's a tricky one, I suppose, because we as millennials, all of us in this room, we've been branded as entitled, self-interested, unfocused, and lazy. So that's how we're kind of branded, I suppose, in the corporate world. That's the way people kind of see millennials. I suppose you're looking at why is that? I suppose you can break it down into four main kind of things. I suppose it's parenting, technology, entitled, and I suppose environment. So in understanding that, we start off with parenting. I suppose we were subject to failed parent strategies, and they're not my words. This is what the research show. We were brought up in an era where we were told that we were special. We were told that we could have anything we wanted. We got participating medals. So we did. Meaning we got medals for coming last. We got into honours, where honours classes not because we'd earned them, but because our parents didn't give out to the teachers. We got A's not because we earned them, but because the teachers couldn't be done dealing with the parents, so they just made it happen. Those sort of things. So that was the era that we grew up in.
When you look at that, when I reflect back even on my life growing up, like, them things happened, and you know, I suppose the most frustrating part of it is that parents always meant well for their kids, and it wasn't out of a negative thing, but at the same time it really doesn't set you up for the big bad world in growing up, you know, when you go out there into the business world or
I suppose, look at, we confine leadership a lot. Our generation confined leadership. So a lot of the corporate companies, we'd say, based in, have went to our generation and have asked us, what do we want? And we're like, well, we want to work in a place with purpose. We want to make an impact. We want free food and beanbags. And that's what we've asked for. So the companies that give us what millennials have wanted, and now they're kind of looking, well, it's not really working. Like the stats that's out there right now for mental health in the workplace is absolutely phenomenal. So it is, and it's getting worse, by the way. It's getting worse. So we're trying to figure out, I suppose, why is it? So we have went through, this is through no fault of our own. We've went through them things that I just mentioned of participating medals, being told everything we want to and everything else. So you can imagine growing up being told that, and then you're thrust out into the big bad world, and you get a job, and you realise that, whoa, I can't get whatever I want. I'm not special, and my mom or dad can't get me a job promotion. I've got to work for it. So in an instinct, your whole self-image and self-esteem has just been shattered. And as a young person coming into this big bad world, you've just been thrust into it, and everything has just been shattered. That you kind of, what your belief system was,
is now changing.
We now also live in a Instagram, Facebook world where we can put filters on things. So basically, where I can put a filter on things to say, hi, I'm super pumped, where I'm actually depressed behind the filter. So that's kind of the world that we're kind of living in now.
But I think it's, look, balance goes back to everything, and it's about finding that balance, and as you say, you know, parenting styles, and they are revolving a lot. And I think even just being a role model as a parent to the child is a huge one as well.
I think we like the people that we're dealing with here, the age between 20 and 40, I think we need to understand ourselves. So not going outside of, like, we got dealt a bad hand, right? We got dealt with, like, this generation, like, has scientifically been proven to have lower self-esteem than any other generation. We need to establish why, and when we can establish why, we can move further. And it's just an evolution. It's there's nowhere you can point the finger here, but we got to understand why and move forward in terms of that one, right? So that's kind of failed parent strategies that have backfired on this generation through no fault of their own. And let me state that, and these are not my words either, by the way. And then you bring in technology, right? Like we know that a like, a share, a follow, a message, everything else makes us feel happy. And that's also dopamine. So it is. that's released, chemical that's released into us that makes us, every time we get a like, share. Like we
makes
also
you
know that when you're sitting at home feeling like shit and bored or something, you will start sending messages to people trying to contact, so then you get messages back that kind of lifts you to get you going again. But we also need to identify and understand that dopamine is also the same chemical that's found in smoking, drinking and gambling, which also means that they're highly, highly addictive.
Okay.
So they are. So we need to identify that. So at a young age, we're exposed to technology, Facebook, Instagram worlds, to a highly addictive
piece of equipment.
Wow. Also bearing in mind that we've got age limits on drinking, gambling and smoking, and we don't on technology, smartphones.
I suppose it's harder to control. They try to do it, and it's a lot harder to control.
Yeah, look, I suppose it's definitely a lot harder to control, but you've got to bear in mind that like going through, we're being exposed to this at a teenage age, so going through adolescence, I suppose, is a tough period for anybody. At anybody, but the problem is now is that we are not building meaningful relationships with people because we're hiding behind a device, behind filters and everything else. So it's the equivalent, like we already know that stats have shown 90% of alcoholics was exposed to alcohol in their teens. But now we're being exposed to social media, which is the exact same thing as opening up the drinks cabinet and saying, hey, go knock yourself out every time you get a difficulty or you reach high levels of stress or anxiety, go knock yourself out now. And that's what we're doing behind a device. So understanding that, I suppose, is a key thing as well.
So how do we, I suppose, feedback for people? What's the main areas there? Self-awareness is probably the big key here, isn't it? Just to build self-awareness of maybe the actions that you take yourself to kind of try, like, VHI done a research not so long ago on health in the workplace, and I think the stats was something like 1 in 5 people in the last year has missed work because of mental health. Like, this is scary.
But we missed a massive element of that because as we grow up, we go through, as we're growing up, we only need the approval of our parents. But in order to grow up, you now need to build an approval with your peers and your friends, and we need to bring friendships with other people. This is a tough period for our parents because now your kid is growing up into the big bad world. But we're missing that, like, we're not actually building them meaningful relationships because we're actually turning to devices. We're building a relationship with a device rather than actual people, which generations did before us. So we're actually missing a link there. And it's the same link, I suppose, as people turn to bottle alcohol, we're actually turning to devices. Their stats also shows, I'd say that 90% of people will say that they have fun with their friends, but they don't rely on them. They say that they're aware of the fact that their friends will drop them for something better. So it's actually, so basically they're friending themselves with a device rather than actual people. So they're actually missing that link of actually missing out with people. And this is in our generation, which is bizarre. So it is like building deep, meaningful relationships with people. We're missing that link. We're now building them with devices that's highly addictive, and understanding that one.
But it is, and even it was only last week we were chatting to our staff about this, about the simple thing of having a conversation over a phone call. Like, that's how low it's getting, that it's, even to be able to answer a call can be classed as something that can be the cause of anxiousness. You know, like, that's how the simple thing that we used to take for granted.
Communication, like so that means it's all hidden behind the device. We live in that technology world where we've got filters, we spend all our time where it's highly addictive and everything else, but there's no technology right now that's going to give you job satisfaction and meaningful relationships. There's no technology out there at this point, and they are the two of the most important things to you and people in life, and we're missing them links, and we need to find them links again, so we do. And then you can throw in, I suppose, impatience, which is the third one. You want something today, you order on Amazon, you get it tomorrow. You don't have to look up movie times anymore, you just download the movie. You don't even have to, you can just binge episodes, you can skip episodes and just binge if you want to. As I said last week, you don't even have to go on a date, you just swipe right. So everything we've got is just, we can get it at the click of a finger. I suppose apart from job satisfaction.
Yeah.
And meaningful relationships, you can't get them in a click of a finger. They're slow, messy processes that you just have to go through in life, and look at and understanding that, I suppose.
But doesn't it go back to like whatever the goal would be? So anybody that's listening, whether it's, you know, as you say, a job satisfaction, or it's a relationship with your partner, or it's, you know, something yourself, whether it's a weight loss journey, I think all of this is the exact same thing in the sense that you have to put in the work, but it's about respecting the goal in the process and knowing that it's not going to happen overnight.
The things that we need in life, we can get them through technology, and we can get them in a click of the things that we don't need, but the things that we do need, you can't get, like the things like love, job fulfillment, joy, love of life, self-confidence. They're all slow processes that require a little bit of work, and you can't get them in the click of a finger. And I think we're spending too much time trying to get them at the click of a finger, rather than building up systems that's actually going to help us to get there. And being patient and understanding, like we talk about when we set this up, we knew we had to, the words I used was we had to eat shit for 5 years. And that was no buying fancy shit, going on holidays. We had to park all of that up. We had to save our money because to build this what we wanted to, and that was what it's going to be, and we set that. Like we set
I think
that.
it's sacrificing, isn't it?
But we set that, and once we set that, we knew what we were doing, and that just kept us focused on that. So that was our motivation, saying right, and we can count down the clock. So we're 3 years in, we're 2 years in, we're 3 years in, and getting there. And that's understanding about where we're going, what we kind of need to do from that one. So, like all the things that mean the most to people in life, to get joy, fulfillment, all of those things, self-love, confidence, are all things that take patience and take time. But all the things that we don't really need in life, we can get them at the click of a finger. Movies, fucking Amazon, clothes, all of those things that we don't need, super important. But this is where we're getting sidetracked on it. So
I suppose then, just in summing that up, what is the, you know, keeping focused is a key here in what you're talking about.
Like we've already detected high levels of depression, high levels of suicide. We've also high levels of dropout from school due to stress, anxiety. So we have, like, this is unheard of. Like this is the first generation that this has been. It's unheard of. And that's probably the best case scenario. That's our best case. Like, our worst case scenario is that 90% of the generations of so-called the millennials are going to live life without joy, meaning, and fulfillment. They're literally just going to go through life. How is work today? Not too bad. How are you feeling? Yeah, okay. There's going to be nothing, and they're just going to have a full generation that's literally going to go through that, which I think is just absolutely shocking. So it is. So it's about understanding what we can do and moving forward.
So how do you keep focused and not get sidetracked about that? Like, you know, it's so easy for me. Like, you only have to look at the views that Love Island's getting, the most, like, unmeaningful, like, program. You can go out there. Kate's probably laughing because she's saying she'd never miss it. But how many people do we hear, I've no time to exercise or put time into myself, but you have an hour to watch Love Island? Like, the most ridiculous things out there on the TVs. People are so hooked to it because it gives them an hour of time where they can escape from reality and think, like, how do you get
I generally feel that the most biggest pressure with that is that we want to be popular. So if I'm not watching it and you go into a pub or you're on social media, like Instagram, when it's on, it's just boom, 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 Love Island. So it's like, well, everyone wants to be deemed to be popular. So people are watching it. Like, I remember this, like, I'm not into TV, and I remember how frustrating it used to be when X Factor used to be the thing on a Saturday night, and you go into a pub where you go out that night and they're all about X Factor, and I'm sitting there and so people are watching it because they don't want to be left out of them conversations and them sort of things, and they're getting sidetracked. Like, I mean,
so it goes back to having open-ended conversations then, and, you know, if everybody's talking about I think what we are discussing now, people are avoiding them conversations because it's easier to talk about Love Island.
Well, like, are people aware of these things? Are people aware of the generation that they're actually living in? Are they aware of what their titles are? Like, are they aware like, are we, like, do we generally know that we, scientifically proven, we are in a generation that are branded as low self-esteem and self-image?
Yeah.
Like we're fitting into that through technology and evolution and everything else. And then just, I suppose, to fire out, I suppose, in the stats that you talked about, the VHI and the work, I suppose, so that goes into your environment. So we now live in these corporate worlds where they don't really give a damn about the people, majority, so they don't really give a damn about the people, and they're just maybe more about the money and the time and production and everything else. So now we've got this generation of people working in the big corporate world that's still old school, and what some of them are trying, but they're like bringing in a motivational speaker for one day. Like if you go to the dentist once a year, your teeth will fall out. But if you brush your teeth for 2 minutes a day every day, your teeth won't fall out. So it's the small little things that actually mean the most, that actually get to you. So like that's like bringing a speaker in. Like it's not going to do it. So it's the small little things that they can do on a day or a weekly basis that can actually help their employees to stay focused. But we blame ourselves. The millennial generation in the workforce blame ourselves for not being up to scratch, but yet the corporate companies are not actually matching us. They haven't adopted to the generation of the people that's working under them. They're still running off an old school system that's not working to these people, and that leaves the millennial generation blaming themselves, and that leaves us more frustrated and more annoyed, and that leads to more stress and more anxiety of kind of dropping out of that one. So understanding that it's not our fault. We got dealt a bad hand. We literally got dealt a bad hand. So it's not our fault. There's no blaming game here, but it's understanding that where we're at, what our difficulties are, what our struggles are, and when you can understand something and identify, well, then you can work on it.
Definitely. And I think it goes back to everything, and I talk about this in consultations a lot. Identifying it's key. So what is it that you want? So what is it that the clients want? What are the biggest struggles that they have? And then I suppose at the end of the day, if they don't take them, what are their risks? If we continue this like strange society that we're in, that, you know, mental health is just through the roof, that's going to continue going if we don't stop and actually take a look at this. And I think that's the key message for today.
I suppose, look at, we all want, as we say, to leave a purpose and all this and meaning and everything else, but it's as if we're standing here and we're looking up at the top of the summit, and that's where we want to. We all want to get to the top of the summit, but we're not seeing the mountain. And we have to climb up that mountain. And I suppose what's at stake if we don't, we're going to fall off that mountain. And that's where we kind of need to stay focused on. We've got to get up there, and it takes slow. It's a slow process to get up that mountain, but start chipping away at one step at a time and actually getting up to the top of that summit. A lot of us are oblivious. We can't see it, but we're sitting looking at the summit saying, I want to get there. And we need to focus on the mountain and start taking small steps and focus and understand where we're going, because if not, we're going to fall off it. And that's, I suppose that's kind of the point on that one. We're all capable of reaching that summit, but we just got to start we've got to look at the mountain, we've got to look at the obstacles, we've got to look at what's in front of us, we've got to identify them, and we've got to start to chipping away with them through patience and everything else.
Self-awareness as well.
Self-awareness is massive, definitely massive one. That's going to finish us up today, is it?
Yep. Thanks very much, guys. Stay tuned for our next podcast, and thanks very much.